Do you see that?
What the hell is that?
Written and directed by Michael something. Someone needs to change their name to a stage name. He directs and writes Night of the Skinwalkers, also known as the Night the World Ended. Now, this is going to be looked at as either genius or gibberish, I suspect, by whoever watches this. Without giving any spoilers, let me attempt to tell you what this movie is about. So it focuses on a group of friends as they are travelling to a cabin in the woods for a break, and there's 6 of them, I believe. And they're down for some partying and everything and all that kind of stuff. And on the way they end up meeting this other couple who seem to be having car trouble. So there's no phone reception, and no one seems to be able to help them get a kind of a lift or anything like that. So they invite this couple to kind of stay until they get their kind of stuff sorted out. So now there's 8 people. And there seems to be some strange stuff happening. As I say, there seems to be no phone signal, batteries are seemingly running out. We get radio reports that there may well be an alien invasion and possibly even an alien visit from some type of creature. But not everything is as it appears. What will happen, you'll have to watch the movie and find out. So, okay, what can we say that works in this movie's favour? I suspect that most people will not finish this film. If you do finish it, I do think it has quite an interesting, unique and somewhat rewarding twist and reveal at the end. Almost a kind of double twist, one would say. But you've got to get through the rest of the movie until we get to that point. I have to say, the movie initially feels incredibly dumb. And there are still elements where it is incredibly dumb. And even with the reveal, which I think, oh, do you know what? That was a fun reveal, and you know, maybe it's not as kind of quite as stupid as the film has led me to believe. There are still some elements in it, but the reveal or reveals do elevate this movie to some degree. But you've got to wait until 15 minutes to the end, really, until you get that point. Outside of that, the acting is mixed, let me just say that, but I do feel there are a couple of characters and performances that, you know, I appreciated. That we have our character of Ted, who I think has the best actor as well, and the character is I would say the most grounded, and his performance is also the most grounded. But there's also some sort of interesting sort of character moments here where there are some people could have maybe acting against type. There's like, for example, and it might sound like a weird thing to sort of have in the film, but there's a talk of how this one particular woman always has really stinky poos. Again, normally that's the kind of like the comic relief guy, but in here it's just this woman, and everyone's complaining that she leaves real, you know, really bad stink pickles. Again, some interesting stuff. We get a lot of, at the beginning of the movie, we get a lot of conversations with these kind of group of people talking about political situations and very current political situations like tariffs and things, which might appeal to some, maybe not others, but obviously it has nothing really to do with the plot, but it's kind of this incidental dialogue that, you know, Tarantino kind of popularised, I guess. And this movie tries to have these kind of conversations about stuff non-related to the actual kind of plot. Some of which is interesting in a way, because that's probably like group of friends might have conversations like this. So in a way, I found the kind of some of the kind of the conversations that we have, you know, the sort of conversations that groups of friends might actually have, discussing various kind of topical issues and things like that. So in a way, even though I don't think it quite worked, because other reasons I'll come on to in a minute, I still think I kind of liked it in a way. I kind of liked the introduction of it because it made these characters feel a little bit more like kind of regular folk in a way. But really, the best plaudits I can say for this movie are in the reveal, which obviously in a movie review I don't want to spoil for you. So I do think the movie, you might watch this film and think, what is this film all about? It just seems absolute garbage. But as the film concludes, you think, oh, you know, that was interesting. That was an interesting idea. Maybe this movie tries to have too many ideas, which leads me to what doesn't work. I feel this movie introduces a lot of things, some of which is complete gobbledygook, and others are kind of are more reflections of society, things like this. And there are some interesting, again, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but there are some interesting things that the movie does kind of bring up to a degree. But the bulk of this movie seems like a horridly made, crappy B-movie. Let's talk about some technical issues. The opening scene of this film, and this is nothing that the reveal is going to kind of change, is a horribly ADR'd sequence in a car, which has got some really bad green screen. It's, you know, how you have those sequences in a car, and it's like the kind of like the scenery like wishing past. This looks like it was filmed in like the 1960s. The kind of the level of VFX here, and we have this really unnatural sounding ADR. This is the first scene of the movie, people. It does not start with its best foot forward. Now, once we get into the cabin, that kind of stuff doesn't happen as much. But there are some technical elements here that just make this movie feel cheap and nasty because of that. Let's talk about the acting. The acting is not strong. There are mixed performances, I would say. There are some performances that are stronger than others, but there are also some weak performances here. Some characters, some with larger roles, some with small roles, seem very unconfident in their performance. Let me just kind of say this. So you have a very unconfident feel to a lot of the acting. Not everyone, but it's a lot of it. The bulk of this running time is conversations in rooms. This is a complaint that I have lobbied against many a low-budget movie, particularly those of like The Asylum and Jagged Edge productions, where rather than having visual spectacle that costs money or set pieces or VFX, the bulk of the running time is wasted in conversations with characters. And the characters seem somewhat cartoonish, some of them. This couple, for example, one guy is dressed in lederhosen for no particular reason. And I think this movie is trying to be like, oh, look at these kooky characters. But it's just like, you know, there's weird for being weird's sake. And some of the kind of the choices here just don't feel like very particularly good, you know. You'll think the VFX will be quite bad. There are a couple of kind of creature shots and things like that. You'll think that isn't very good. Now, the reveal will kind of shed a little bit of light on that, but yeah, you might not get to that point. There's elements here that are introduced that just seem like completely out of left field. Like this character of Ted, who at one point, you know, he seems the most grounded. All of a sudden he finds a sword that one of his, I think his father or someone found Stonehenge and it's meant to be like a magical sword. I'm thinking, what? You know, it just comes out of nowhere. And again, this is a little bit of dialogue that is not kind of like explained by the reveal. And let's talk about the reveal without talking about it. So the reveal will give some interesting ideas, and it will shed light on different groups of people and what they're actually doing there. And I think in itself it's clever, but there are also some elements here that don't make sense. When the bulk of the people, you'll know what they're up to. There's a certain amount of technology that would be involved in this, and for some reason, you know, again, without spoiling anything here, people aren't able to see things that are going on when they should be able to see things that are going on. It doesn't make sense. It sort of undercuts that reveal. And then we have other kind of reveals that I just don't know if it makes a lot of sense. So when you watch this movie, if you decide to watch it, you're going to think this movie is, I would imagine, a little bit of a weak film. If you make it to the end, you might like it a little better. But even that isn't without its problems. Again, this is a vague review. I appreciate. I don't want to spoil anything really for you, but overall, it's still probably a lesser film because I just don't think it will hold your interest. Sure, it's got a fun reveal, but you've got to get through a lot of kind of like quite tedious material that is not put together particularly well, both in an acting, a technical standpoint, and a pacing standpoint until we get there. So it's a 3 out of 10 to me. It's just not a good film overall, but there's some interesting elements that are introduced maybe a little bit too late. Anyway, there you go. 3 out of 10.